12.95 is now the last document within the planning section. Okay, and this is the risk identification sign-off. Now the purpose of this document, like we saw in 10.25, the engagement setup sign-off, it's a little bit of a summary of the preceding documents in the section, and it allows the reviewer to go back and just confirm a couple of the results of these working papers. Now in this section, all we've really done, because there's a lot of information we've documented, all I'm doing is going and having a look, has this document been signed off? And you'll see in all these cases it's no, I haven't been signing off the documentation as I've gone through. Once again, we are looking for some form of confirmation, and the confirmation can only be completed when you have signed in. Now it's a simple process, just going and putting yeses in place. The very important thing about this document is 12.95 is kind of a decision point which will allow or disallow the ability to populate audit programs. As I said in the beginning, audit programs don't automatically appear within RAC. You actually need to populate them. But you need to actually go and have done a reasonable amount of the planning in terms of identifying the correct components before we know which audit programs to even go and put in to the financial, or sorry, within the audit file. Now, if you are in a position where you do need those audit programs urgently, even though you say here that the document has not been signed off, you can go and say yes in each of these blocks, and you will still be able to go and populate the audit programs. Once you've signed off this working paper, that's the other thing that it's going to look for. So you need to set it as reviewed or as partner reviewed. Otherwise it's not going to populate either. And the reason for this is just that we're wanting to make sure that there is a reviewer or partner level interaction with this audit file before we just populate the audit programs. We don't want your first year clerks who don't really understand the audit process to go and populate the audit programs. They go and do the whole audit, and then you realize, but hang on, there's no revenue section in the file. So we've actually forgotten to go and audit revenue. Everything was looking great, but now we haven't audited revenue. So that's the whole purpose here. We want to make sure that the appropriate stuff is getting into the file, and we're wanting somebody at a higher level to make the decision about when we populate the audit programs. Now, if you do populate the audit programs now, and later down the line you realize, hang on, but I need an additional audit program, you can repopulate. It doesn't override the or doesn't replace the existing audit programs. All it will do is add the missing ones when you populate again. So it's not a huge train smash, but just do be aware that you need to have gone through this document. You have needed to sign off as partner or a reviewer. There is then a question about locking the prelim analytical. And what this basically will do is, you'll recall that we've done the prelim and analyticals in section 11, and you need to import a new trial balance, or you've got to go and do various audit journals or whatever the case might be, but you don't want those figures to go and change. So we've decided what we're going to comment on. We will still do a final analytical review, but you don't want the numbers to now change on my prelim analytical. So like, for instance, all the ratios you did and everything, that could all change, which you don't want it to change even slightly. You just want it to remain fixed. You can go and say yes, you want to lock the prelim analytical. Once you've done that, you can delete the entire trial balance. You can do journals, do what you like. The numbers in that prelim analytical will not change. If you decide you do actually want to change it, just come back and make this a no again. Open up your prelim analytical, and it will still go and update all the values. Now, because this particular file was a new engagement, you'll see that it is pulling through that we decided that this client was a moderate risk when we did our predecessor audit review. We've gone and looked at the working paper files. Maybe we picked up some issues in trying to extract information from the predecessor auditor, or maybe the client even said, you know what, no, you can't speak to my previous auditor. We've raised the level of risk. This is just an indication for you because of this next question, and this next question is quite important. It's talking about guidance for the overall risk for the client. So we've gone through the risk identification process. We've done all the planning. How risky do we feel this client is? Now, it is a judgment call. And if I hit the drop down, you'll see it's low, low to moderate, moderate or significant. What this will ultimately represent in your audit file is the minimum level of assurance that you need to obtain for every single assertion of every single component that you've selected throughout the rest of the audit file. So if at this point you're telling me that this client is a significant risk, I would almost be saying to you, but then why are you even accepting this client as a client? Because you are going to go and do so much audit work on this file to go and get a significant level of assurance for every single assertion of every single component. Now, we have not forgotten the risks at this point. We are still going to do the risk assessment, and we'll look at those documents in a moment. So generally, low is possibly the most appropriate answer because you're not wanting to take higher risk clients. Now, in this case, we've already said moderate, so you'd need to go and explain why you're reducing that risk. So this is just an example. So let's maybe set it to moderate. But that becomes, like I say, the minimum level of assurance. And when we look at the audit plan next week, we'll have a look where that comes out. So I'm going to leave that one at moderate. And we have now also signed this off. You can see that I've signed it off. My initials and the date are in place. I'm just going to flick across and back into 12.95. This allows a refresh of our database, so that I can go to RAC, and hopefully on first attempt I'm going to click on Populate Audit Programs. Let's see what happens. Yes. You'll see at the very bottom, I'm not sure how clearly it'll come through on your side, but you'll see at the bottom left there is a whole little dialogue going as it's populating the various audit programs into the file. If you see this at the bottom left, then you've done everything correctly. If you press the button and it just quickly flashes back to whatever working paper you're already on, then it probably hasn't populated correctly, and you'd need to go back and find out what's wrong. Why has the audit population not worked? Let's go and look at the guidance. The guidance sheet goes and explains to you exactly what you need to have in place in order to populate. So if you are getting stuck, go to 12.95. In our other methodologies, so for instance, Audit Lite Plus, there's actually a document 30.01, where are my audit programs? And you can go and have a look there for guidance on how to go and populate. But for RAC, it's sitting in 12.95. And it goes through the process. If you're still struggling, hop onto remote support. We can go and have a look with you if there's maybe a corruption or any other problems that you're experiencing that is causing the population not to work.